Welcome to How I Broke That.
Michel Eberhardt has over 25 years of experience in entrepreneurship, 25 years of brilliance and breaks. And that includes funding the largest restaurant delivery operation in South America, as well as an investor in one of the leading IT performance companies in South America. Now, he's on to another game-breaking venture in the education space. But the story might be different had it not been for the courage of his grandparents to leave Europe around the Second World War. And then, once in Brazil, his grandfather's foresight to ensure his family members learned multiple languages. Therefore, by listening to our show today about this breaker, who has degrees from universities in Brazil, Spain, and the US, you will be better prepared to break for good somewhere in the world. Michel, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me to the show.
Yeah,
Thank
how you
you.
doing today?
Good. I'm in Brazil. It's quite chilly for our winter right now, but it's quite good here.
Good, all good, man. Usually when we start the show, we kind of find some element of an entrepreneur's background when they were growing up. But for you, actually, we can start generations ahead of time. And I would love for you, as much as you're comfortable, to tell the story of your grandparents and how they came over from Europe, much like mine. Mine went to America, yours went to Brazil, and how that has shaped your life personally and professionally.
Okay, great. So I'm Jewish, and my whole family on both sides were Jewish and were Europeans and had to flee the war. The World War. On my father's side, they managed to flee just before the war. My grandfather, Arthur, he had some factories in Germany, and he had been in Brazil before the war doing business, and he liked the country very much. When things started getting tough there, he sent his younger brother here to Brazil and his parents, and then he tried to go back to Germany to sell his assets just before a war broke down. He only managed to get $400, and in the last minute he managed a flight to Brazil, and he came and he started here almost from scratch. And they helped a lot the Jewish community here. They founded the Jewish hospital. That's the best hospital in Latin America. An orphanage, the Rotary Club, the synagogue, all to help the other Jewish immigrants coming here. And on my mother's side, they weren't that lucky. My grandfather went to labor camps in Hungary, and my grandmother survived Auschwitz. She went to the camp, but she managed to survive. They met just after the war, and they were in line in Paris to get a visa for Canada. They were sleeping in the line, and then they heard that Canada wasn't issuing any more visas. And they heard about Brazil, a country called Brazil that was giving visas. They had no idea about Brazil.
Right.
They managed to get the visas. They got on the first boat to Brazil. And it's a funny, sad story, but like when they landed in Rio, it was the middle of the carnival. And he, from the top of the ship, he saw everybody in the streets, partying, fireworks. And he said, "Oh, damn, we immigrated to a country in war." But he didn't know it was only carnival in Brazil. And he was helped a lot by the infrastructures of the first Jews that came to Brazil with all they set up for the immigrants. And he started his life here. And then my parents met, and then I was born, and that's another story. But on my grandfather's side, so when he started building on Arthur Eberhardt, when he started building his business, the auto industry was started in Brazil, and he became the biggest supplier of headlamps, back lamps to the car industry in Brazil. But since he had to flee Germany and everything, when he started making money, he started investing in other countries. So if he had to flee again, the family wouldn't have to start from scratch. So we have a business partner in Canada that we have been doing business for 4 generations now. He had business in Europe, in South Africa, so he was hedged and all that. And
That's
he
great.
also wanted his kids and then grandsons to know other languages and other cultures. My dad used to speak 8 languages. I speak 6. And like we went to the American school here, and then I studied in Spain, and then I did an MBA in Spain, and then when I did a couple extensions in Stanford, and then during my sabbatical, I did a UCLA for sustainability and design, that are 2 passions of mine.
How has being, a global citizen helped your businesses?
So I think I learned during the years to understand and see trends before they happen. So maybe traveling and knowing other cultures. Some of the companies that I funded were a bit too early for the market. Some we got the market's timing right, but I think I have a good vision to adapt business from outside and bring them to Brazil, and then take some of the knowledge of Brazil and take that and start other business in other places too.
Let me think here. Any good examples that you can tell us of how that happened, i.e., the story of your brother at Boston University?
Yes, that my brother, he went to Boston in university, and he didn't know how to cook, and he survived on a food delivery business called Waiters on Wheels there. And Brazil and São Paulo has a big restaurant scene. It's very international food. So when he moved back, we thought it was a good idea to start the multi-restaurant delivery business here in Brazil. So we started Disc is like calling in Brazil. And at the time, we started in 1997. It was before internet, phone, fax, and all those
Right.
things. And before that, like only like delivers, like you had the pizza or the burger place that would only deliver their own food. But we started delivering from all the best restaurants in São Paulo, and then in Rio, and then some other cities here.
Okay.
So
So, you kind of tell that story and it seems very seamless. Uh, but it wasn't, of course. There had to have been bumps and bruises that you probably still can show us all over your body. So talk to us about building that brand, because I didn't know this before, but through my business partner Anna, when we were talking, she said, you don't know iFood? I'm like, nah, I didn't know. And she told me it was a monster.
yeah. So when we started, there wasn't any internet, and like we had to print all the menus on magazines, and because it had all the menus for the clients to choose the food. And Brazil at the time, we had a very high inflation. So imagine the prices change from one month to the other, and it was very hard, expensive to print. Then we started getting advertisement into the magazines. But at one time, we were printing like 300,000 magazines every quarter, and then we had to distribute those. So like we tried the mail, but Brazil had inefficient mail at the time, and it's expensive. And then we started doing like at the end, our own motorbike guys were delivering the magazines to the clients because it was cheaper and it was better. And then like imagine, because like at the time in Brazil, phone lines were very expensive, and we had the client calling us. We had the order done on the computer, and then we had to fax the order to the restaurant. And at the
Fax?
time, the fax. I don't know
Okay.
if you remember that what it
I,
was, but it's
I'm getting with you. Yeah.
yeah. But the problem is the restaurant at the time had one phone line because it was so expensive, and
Mm.
they had to do like reservations, credit card, and receive the fax. And once we hang up with the client, the time was running to do the delivery, and we couldn't pass the fax. And we had to pass because what happened, the delivery guy, since we worked with several restaurants, didn't know the address to deliver. And after he delivered it, to which restaurant he had to go. So we started like with Nextel radios. So like after you deliver Josh, go to like Burger King or the steakhouse to pick the other order.
Mm.
So like the problem is and the fax, it was mirrored. So like half of the fax would keep with the restaurant as a control for the billing, and the rest had the information of the delivery for the delivery guy. But this started getting crazy with the orders were growing, And then we went around the world and we found like a half a G printer machine, not even 1G at the time. And that was like one of the great ideas that we had, because then we could bypass the phone lines. The restaurant would receive the order. It's like a credit card printing machine. He had a button to confirm that he had received the order, and then the time would start counting for the delivery. And at the time, like, and the delivery guy would go to the restaurant, have the ticket with the address. He would sit with like the guidebook of all the streets in São Paulo looking for the client's address while he was waiting for the order to be made. But with this printing machine, it totally revolutionized our business, because like we could focus on only like the order taking and not the delivery itself. So that we could expand and then make the whole difference. And then we started doing the iFood spin-off inside the Jiski Cookie. But before that, we even tried, I think we're sometimes earlier than our age, than the market is ready, right? Because we started doing like something like almost like an Amazon Now at the time. We would deliver from a very fancy restaurant here in supermarket here in São Paulo, pet shop, books, magazines, and like presents, and all like from pharmacies. And the whole thing was that we would just like pick and deliver and get a commission on that. But we were doing well. That was another called multi-delivery. It was the other deliveries other than food that we're doing. And that was in 99, early 2000s.
Wow.
And we started looking for VC investment at the time. And we found a company in New York called Cosmo, that they started delivering videos and DVDs. And then
Cosmo delivered a lot more than DVDs and videos.
Yeah,
all my friends would tell you that.
Yeah, but they started with DVDs, and then they started delivering other things. And we talked to them, and they wanted to buy us out. And we had a deal, 100% on stocks, to become Cosmo Latin America. They would buy our company, but we weren't very comfortable with their model at the time, because they had the whole inventory. They had to do the sourcing, and our business model was just like picking, getting a commission, and delivery. So we literally had the contract on our table, and we were discussing over the weekend. The internet bubble burst, and they popped, and they become burst. So like it was like timing was very good. And then like we went back to basics. We started delivering more food. We started delivering from McDonald's and other big chains here in Brazil. Internet was coming. We started testing the internet with SMS. So you could go online into Jiski Cookie website and create your favorite dishes. Like 1, 2, 3 was like hot dog, pizza, and whatever. So from the car, you could send an SMS, just number 1, and that would automatically create your order, and we will deliver that order. So we saw there was a trend. We had a desktop site. Things started coming from the desktop. So we decided to do a spin-off called iFood. And the deal was that all online orders from Jiski Cookie and all the vertical deliveries we had to go through iFood. And then we raised with venture capital, and my brother and I had the majority. We left on the 3rd to 4th round. We sold it. We were doing 1 million deliveries a month. And a couple years later, it became the 2nd or 3rd unicorn in Brazil. And I recently talked to some people there. They're doing 18 million deliveries a month.
Amazing.
In COVID.
So. Amazing. In that story that you told us, it was like you took us in the way back on the time machine, because you mentioned phone lines, fax machines, and Nextel. That's amazing. I remember those. So not only were you ahead of your time, but you also were, leveraging all the tools you could at the time. And I can empathize with you in terms of losing a letter of intent. I had a letter of intent for my after-school enrichment company to be acquired. And the letter of intent was signed in February 2020. It was rescinded as the world started to end around March 13th when the pandemic hit. So I can empathize with you on that in terms of the heartbreak, but then the pivot, and then, landing on your feet knowing that you're going to be okay. I think we all got there. So let's just talk real quickly about what happens to somebody after they, kind of exit a company that was doing that well. You didn't just say, hey, back to work. You took some time to breathe. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, because I had other business, other investments in the middle. Like I've been board member, I'm mentoring some people, I invested in other companies. But with the deal, when I sold iFood, I decided to take a leave of the market and go for a sabbatical with my family. I wanted them also to have an international experience, live in the US. So we went to Pacific Palisades nearby LA in California. The plan was for a sabbatical of only 1 year. I was going to do design at UCLA, but my family adapted very well. They liked it very much. And we ended up staying 5 years in Pacific Palisades. I came back January of 2020 to launch this new startup to be live in Brazil as a test market before the COVID changed.
Okay,
Forever.
we're going to get into To Be Live right now. We are going to take a pause. I wanted to mention this great tool I've been using, which is called Vodium. I'm going to read to you what Vodium says about themselves. Our mission at Vodium is to empower you to be the most effective communicator possible on video. With its transparent technology, Vodium sits directly on top of your video conferences, allowing you to read your remarks while maintaining eye contact with your audience. So, Michel, as I read that, I could see you. And I think Vodium is pretty cool. My background is also in broadcast journalism, where we would stare into a teleprompter. Granted, on the other side, that was a camera. Now, because we're doing communication like this, it's really helpful to be able to see the words but continue to see your audience. So Vodium's got a referral code for me that's going to come. I think other people should use it. Give it a try. It might help you if you're doing things like this and talking to great people like Michel. So let's zoom to Be Live. It's something that you're passionate about. In a conversation yesterday, you saw that I was very passionate about it as well. This is another example, though, of you potentially being ahead of the curve on this stuff. So talk about you were, where you were when you decided to get into the education space, and To Be Live came to fruition ahead of the pandemic.
So it's funny you're saying Zoom. We're better than Zoom. I will explain it. And my dad always said that I was a professional student because I like to study so much. And education is something that I think it's very important. And it's a big differentiation here in Brazil because the school system, the public system is not too good. And 80% of the system, education is public here in Brazil. And if we don't have a better education, we'll still be keeping voting on the same people that takes Brazil where we are right now. But so I was in Pacific Palisades with my family. I have 2 young daughters, and they were in need at the time. They were 6 and 8, more or less, and I was in need to find an English tutor for them because they were not native speakers. And I had a very hard time finding a physical tutor in the region. Then I started looking online, and I saw there wasn't anything like really good online. People were using Skype, WhatsApp, Zoom to do tutoring online at the time. And somebody referred me to ABC Mouse. That is an app on the iPad that teaches English. I gave it to my kids. I really thought they were playing games on the sofa on the iPad until the teacher from both called me and said, I don't know what you're doing, but your kids are doing really well in English. Keep doing what you're doing. So,
and what were you doing? Nothing? Just letting them?
Nothing. I was giving them ABC Mouse, and it was a native app on the iPad. My kids were born with iPads. They were totally digital, and it was fun, engaging. And I saw that there's something there. But then I started looking, like they only had their own content, and like you could only run their own content. And I saw that teachers preferred teaching with their own content, their own materials, and so on. So I saw there was something there that there wasn't in the market, like e-learning platform for education. People were adapting Zoom and whatnot, but you need other tools, you need other things to teach online. So we started developing, I met Antonio, that he's my other co-founder, is a Brazilian that has a tech background that I don't have. And we started talking about the project, and we started planning a full, like a Shopify experience for education. It's an all integrated solution that has everything you need to teach online. So we have live sessions, we have recorded sessions, we have integrated billing, scheduling, we have payment, we have a cloud library, and we have several other features that help the teacher control better the class and have feedback and know what's happening.
Right.
And we went a step, I think, beyond what was needed. So we did To Be Live to be a sharing knowledge platform. We believe that everybody has an acquired knowledge, and that knowledge is worth something to somebody else on the other side. So the whole thing, the idea behind To Be Live at the time was like to have the Uber driver that's an engineering, and he can't find the job as an engineering. That's why he's driving the car. But he's totally capable of teaching English, Portuguese, math to a kid for the amount that he wants, whenever he wants, from wherever he wants. So that was the big picture To Be Live. But we know it's a long journey to get the long tail to all these guys. So we saw there was a huge need for tutoring and homeschool. So we started targeting on that market before going to the long tail journey. That's pre-COVID. Okay.
That's pre-COVID. But the experience that you've had in a post-COVID world, you know, people are going back
totally
to school,
different,
right? Is totally different. And you know, although I believe in the business model for sure, and I believe in it on a global scale. Talk about the challenges that you're facing now as you try to build a business, given that you know, we're both parents, and I think you know, when learning soccer, football, you know, we'd like our kids to do that on a field. Certainly when being tutored or maybe learning cooking, they could do it online. So talk about the challenges for your business that parents and kids want to go back to in person.
Yeah. So I think we have two very good differentiations on To Be Live that made a difference on this post-COVID era. Once, because of the bandwidth and the internet connectivity in Brazil, that's not the best. We planned and designed the whole platform to run on low bandwidth. So to be inclusive, to go areas where the other platforms can't reach. So we currently have optimized To Be Live to run around 2% of the consumption of bandwidth that Zoom or Google Meet does. What does that mean? That we can transmit our live sessions with 1 bar of 3G. And we have students like literally 150 kilometers from the capital of the Amazon state doing live sessions, English classes with a live tutor. And also during COVID, when all schools had to go online and try to transmit 20, 30 simultaneous sessions from one single access point, the bandwidth in Brazil isn't that good, and it was congested, everybody online. So people had to hire dedicated links, and that's very expensive in Brazil. So To Be Live is much easier to transmit and to receive. And just a quick story. I had this insight because I was helping an NGO into the middle of the Pará state. It's also in the Amazon region. That they created these info centers in the middle of the jungle. So this community, I went there to help launch the program. Just to give you an idea, they were a 12-hour boat ride to a public phone. That was their means of communication to the world. And I'm talking 2012, 2013. And when we started the info center there, it's a little house with routers and Wi-Fi, and people have started seeing computers and everything. And it totally changed the life of this community, because people would try their life, go to the biggest city nearby. If they couldn't land a job, they would never return to the middle of the jungle because there was nothing to do, the young people. But with the internet connectivity, they started communicating to the world. Now they have a website, they receive tourists, they sell artifacts, and people are studying, opening business. So just having the connectivity and connecting them to the world. So this was one of the things that we really benefit during COVID. And the other thing that we saw on experience, when we started doing online classes, my kids were doing online school here in Brazil, and I saw that the class was like, the whole class was in another window playing Roblox. And the
Right.
teacher had no idea that nobody was paying attention. He was just telling and everything. So inside To Be Live, there's a banner for the teacher alerting that the student is multitasking. We don't know what he's seeing, but we know he's not paying attention. And then we also record how much he has talked, how much he has engaged for emoticons, chats, and all that. So the teacher during the live session can filter the students in the classroom to pick on the students that he wants. He can even see who has camera and has the camera turned off, and who is multitasking and that. So we create these dashboards for the school, for the parents, that we can prove that the student was paying attention also. And we're also recording the LMS part, the recorded part of the class. So we know if the student saw the video into the end, if he read the 50-page PDF in 1 minute, or he took an hour to go all over that. So we're keeping track of that. So that is one of the things that really helps in education. You have to track, you have to know where your students is doing. It's not like a Zoom webinar that everybody has control everything. So like, just another thing, when we use the blackboard, actually it's a whiteboard, and the teacher types or erases, he's the only one that can erase his text. Because on Zoom, I think Zoom or Google Meets, everybody can erase everybody else's. So we've seen like the teachers writing, the students are erasing. So like the students can't change their background. We have AR lenses that increase engagement that the teacher can put as a prize for the students. So we really took the best practice of education and brought them online on a platform tailored and designed for a better learning and teaching experience.
Yeah, I can say firsthand, because I was having some internet issues here in Mexico a couple days ago, and I said let's put what you're saying to the test in terms of low bandwidth, and it worked. And so kudos to you guys and your team, which I've had some experience with. I know they're a great team. So just as we kind of wrap up here a little bit, one of the things that has impressed me about you. I can give some numbers. You've 22 invested ventures, angel founding, venture capital. I read something that you wrote about yourself and, talking about your entrepreneurial background of merging, selling, filing for Chapter 11, closing companies, hiring enemies, firing friends, creating new markets. You've done a lot. Great. But what
Yep.
you've always had is you've been mission driven. And To Be Live
Yeah.
is also mission driven. Clearly, you've got that low bandwidth so you can get to people, so you can help them learn. How do people focus on the double bottom line, and how have you done it so well?
I haven't done it so well. I've been learning. I'm on a learning curve, but I think you have to have passion and believe what you're doing. And like money for money, it's there, but it's like you have to give something back. You have to help people. Like Brazil, it's a very unequal country, and some parts of the world also. So if you can help them, like it's a thing like we say in Brazil, like you can't give him the fish. You have to give him the fishing rod. You have to teach him how to fish so he will be sustainable. And with his own hands and things, he can leverage his life. So it's the same thing. Education is very powerful, and it can unlock a lot of new opportunities and things. So if the person has the will to succeed, you just have to give him tools to help his way. So I think it's more or less like that.
What would Arthur Eberhardt say today about you and what you've done?
I think he would be very proud, because we're growing. My brother and I, we're partners, and like we're keeping like some of his vision, and he helped us a lot. So, and it's a funny story, because when we got into university here in Brazil, like there you can always go as a trainee, something like that. It's very common. So he let me work for 6 months into the factory, and then he said, enough, now we know how you do. Go learn and make your mistakes someplace else. Go learn, don't make the mistakes here. When you have more like education and a thick skin, you can come back here and work into the family business. But my brother and I didn't like the family business industry. We believed more in technology and other things. So my side of the family, we left the business and we focused more on venture capital investments and all that.
Yeah. Well, and you've been very successful, but not before, some beautiful mistakes, I'm sure. And that's all what this audience is looking for, where you can tell that everybody we interact with is glass half full people, but it's also helpful, as you and I talked about, to spotlight the mistakes, because without the mistakes, you can't kind of get past it and grow. So, thanks for sharing all that, taking us to a couple of Wayback Machines, Europe, World War II, fax machines, Nextel, phone lines, but all that leads to this. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll keep following you. And of course, we're cheering on To Be Live, one of your latest ventures. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Thanks for listening on How I Broke That.